Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Adam Matthews with Matthews Counseling, and every single month we try to offer some resources around different mental health, behavioral health, and relational health issues that you might be facing. And this month it is all about relationships and emotional health and the connection between those. And we have one of our amazing therapist interns, April Bradley, is with us and to talk about validation and teens. And really, overall, the validation piece is about building a stronger connection between parents and their teenagers. And I can attest from personal experience that the teenage years are better than people make them out to be, but also that emotional connection piece can be a struggle at times in figuring out how to maintain a good connection with your adolescence during those years. So, April, first of all, tell me kind of the what is the we're going to talk about validation, why that's so important, but tell me a little bit about the mistakes that parents can sometimes make, right, when they're trying so hard to do this good thing of trying to connect emotionally with their kids.
Oh, yeah, like so the I guess I would call it unintentional invalidation, right?
Yes.
In the lab of my own life as a parent, I'd want, you want to rush in and fix it for them.
Yes.
And part of that is saying it's okay, even when
Yeah.
it's not okay.
Yes.
And we're just hoping that by exerting our will, we're going
Yes.
to make that situation okay just by
Oh,
saying so. And
I love that.
um,
Yes.
It just,
Yeah.
it's our own anxiety and fear and our desire to love and protect them. And
Yes.
it just clashes in this miscommunication. Then your kid is stomping off crying or upset or has a meltdown, and you're just like,
What did
what
I
did I
do?
do?
Yeah. I think that's such a good point and someone that is so um challenging sometimes because even knowing kind of that it's okay to feel negative or difficult things in life, knowing that myself, like I have that impulse of like when my kids are expressing difficult emotion or upset emotion, that desire to rush in and fix it and soothe everything out and go, ah,
Yeah.
yes, like I can make it better with my words, right? Like I can fix this because I don't want them to have to experience any kind of anxiety or angst that they are experiencing. And that's so hard to get our heads around sometimes that it is invalidating to their emotional experience to say, oh, it's all going to be okay right away, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a challenging thing, or to try to fix it in that sense.
And you brought up something I think is very important is our anxiety and our wish to prevent our children from feeling uncomfortable and having to that robs them of resilience,
Yes.
and that's
For
a gift we all want to give our children,
yes.
and we create barriers to it unwittingly. So,
Yeah, resilience is like I could talk for hours about kind of all the research on resilience and the importance of resilience. But one of the things is that we can't learn resilience unless we go through difficulty, right? Essentially, right?
yeah.
We have to go through difficulty to be able to learn resilience. So you're right, like we can't not allowing our anxiety to rescue them from those emotions sometimes can hinder that ability to learn how to be resilient. The other thing that just occurred, and you tell me what you think of this as well, is that oftentimes I minimize my children's emotions because I forget what it's like to be them and their
Yeah.
experiences. And so, like, to me, as sitting at 46, right, like I can see that whatever they're going through as an easy problem to solve or something that's not gonna, like, I have the perspective of knowing what life is on the other side of middle school or what life is on the other like is on the other side of high school. And so there are times where I can unintentionally minimize what they're going through because I have the perspective of age and experience. Um, and forgetting that when you're in it, it's the worst thing in the world. Me and my daughter's mom all the time say eighth grade was the worst. We have to remind ourselves eighth grade was terrible,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
remember how bad it was. I don't know if that, but that to me also plays into what you're talking about. Do you
Oh,
find
I
that as
think
well?
so. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I find it in my day-to-day experience. You
Yeah.
know, I have in our blended family, we have three children, ages 26 to 14.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're in the thick
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. And that can be hard when you're in that to try to figure that out. So let's talk about like those are some of the things. And there's other things obviously that parents do that can be invalidating to their kids. But overall, we know that as parents, we want that emotional connection. We desire that emotional connection. That's where a lot of that comes from is that push toward having connection with our teens. And so let's talk about the importance of validation, right? Why is validating their emotions so important?
Oh, I think primarily it creates security.
Mm.
It creates security with you, the parent, in the family system, and it also fosters self-esteem and high self-worth.
Yeah.
So,
100%. That safety piece is so key. That being like, I think one of the things that we talk about a lot in any relationship, but particularly in the parent-kid relationship, is being a soft place to land
yeah,
for your kid fosters so much safety that we become it's almost like we become the vessel to contain all of these emotional experiences and allow them to not just experience them, but express them in that safe container. And so being that soft place to land becomes really super important. And validation is one of those ways that we do that. Safety and security, huge. Fostering good self-esteem. Can you tell me a little bit about how validation fosters good self-esteem for for our kids?
because the emotions they're experiencing inside become externally validated by your parent or your caregiver, and just you don't feel crazy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you learn to trust yourself. You learn to
Yes.
trust not only your executive function and reasoning through decisions, but I think this it gives our children the ability to trust the decisions they make, feel good about them.
Mm.
And if they make a mistake again, the resilience piece comes in.
Yes. Yeah, there's such a great place about being able to learning how to trust yourself. And one of that is saying, oh, I'm experiencing this emotion, and to have somebody else say, of course you are, right? Of course you're going through that. And that makes so much sense. Allows them to foster like, oh, my feelings I get they make sense. It learns how to be congruent, and I learn how to trust that what I'm feeling matters and is valid. And builds that self-worth and self-esteem. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about April about what we mean by validation. And I want to start by talking about what we don't mean, right? Because what we don't mean is that we don't mean agreement. Validation doesn't equal agreement. It doesn't equal permission. It doesn't equal condoning behavior, right? And
Yeah.
that feels to me, that's what I run into sometimes with parents when we're talking about validation. I don't know if you do as well, but can you say a little bit more about that, about why validation doesn't mean agreement, condoning behavior, permission, etc.
Right. Well, I think that sitting with discomfort piece comes in with
Yeah.
this. Let's say, for example, I'm just trying to think of an example at the top of my head, something you wouldn't agree with, but you want to validate. Um, your child is so upset at a peer, they want to do something relatively destructive or,
Yeah.
physical, which is, especially when they're very young, it's such an impulsive thing to do.
Yeah.
And you can validate, um, it is so hard, that emotion is so hard not to give it, it's not to give into that action.
Yeah.
And I'm here for you, and I don't condone it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
That's not
that
okay.
both and language. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked a lot. We talked a lot too about like that, especially these days about what's okay to post on social media, what's not okay to post on social media, right? What's okay to do and what's not
Yeah.
okay to do. But also say, yeah, that sucks. That really is that is a difficult thing that your friend did to you, right? but we're not, but it's not okay for us to then turn that into action that's harmful to somebody else. We can do both things. We may not do them at the same time, but we can say like, oh, that thing that happened was so terrible. Of course you felt betrayed. Of course you felt upset. Of course you felt abandoned, whatever it was, right? And let now,
Yeah.
and once we've felt that, let's talk about things that we can do about it and what's okay and what's not okay. But the emotion is always okay. So how do we help parents understand how to validate? What are the things that we do that's really important to remember when we talk about validating emotion?
Um, this has come up with some of my clients, and I would say part of it is also timing.
Yeah.
There's the validation piece, and then there's the solution piece. Just like you're talking about, we can talk about how to handle this, but sometimes in the moment with that emotion, your child just needs to be validated,
Yes.
needs to feel heard and seen. And going to them later, even if it's 10 minutes later, it could be days later, and offering, hey, would you like some help figuring out how to handle this?
Yes.
Um, it's so difficult to sit quietly and not speak and
Yes.
not offer the solutions to your child. Yeah.
Yeah. That piece I often say connection before correction, right?
Oh,
And in this
perfect.
case,
Yeah,
we
I
could
like
also
that.
say connection before solution. And one of those things is
Mhm.
validation of the emotion before solution, validation of the emotion before correction. Those pieces may come, but I agree with you. I think you're so right that the timing of it, almost even the order of operations here becomes really important. And we don't have to be perfect at it, but the idea is that we're leaning more into the emotional side of things than we necessarily are into the correction or the solution part of things. All have a place, right? But that order of operations is super important as well. What else, April? What else can we help with? Like, what else is another part of validating well?
Um, Not sharing your own experience.
Mm,
And instead of
yes.
saying, like, well, when I was your age or this happened, this is how I handled it.
Oh,
That's still sort of you can just hear it's that desire to connect,
yeah,
to show your child empathy, and you're being risky by sharing something in your own past, but it's perceived as, why is this now about you,
yeah,
mom or dad? Or,
yeah.
and so
Uh,
it's sort of have to retrain yourself to focus on your child.
Yeah, I am so guilty of that all the time.
Yeah,
Like
same here.
that feel it can feel connecting, right? And there may be a time and place for it, but again, like right in that moment, that's not necessarily when it is for. I
Yeah.
love, and I think it's very hard to remember that, but it's so important that we keep them at the center of their own emotion and their own emotional experience as we're talking to them. Right. One of the things you said in your blog that I'm so interested in too is this idea of creating daily connection points, right? This idea
Mhm.
that in and of itself can be validating as well. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Oh, um, if we are still lucky enough that our teen wants to have a conversation with us, say absolutely, attend
Yeah,
with all your attention. Stop, put things down. If you're doing something that you can't stop, tell them, I want to hear this and I can listen. I want to listen in X amount of time.
yeah.
Just make these moments count.
Yeah, I
And
love
they can
that.
be small ones. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. It can be 20. I think if we aim for 10 to 20 minutes of that kind of amount of time, like it can be revolutionary. And I think we think of times oftentimes these moments of connection as being deep, long, extended periods of times. They don't have to be. We can't force it, but when we make that a
Yeah.
regular habit, right? When we're able to create those daily points of connections as those check-ins, we increase the opportunity that they're going to come and talk to us about something that we have the opportunity to validate where they're at and what they're going through, which I think is so very, very important. April, what's one thing you would want parents to really take away from our conversation? If they just took one thing away, what would it be?
Well, that validation is also protecting them. The
Mm,
payoff is in the future when
mm.
by validating, we're modeling what a healthy,
Yes.
loving relationship is.
I
So when they
love
go out
that.
into the world, um, if they're going to run into situations that are invalidating, that are
Mm,
negative, toxic, and harmful, they have this experience of what your connection and love look like, and
I
they
love that.
know that that's not it.
Yeah, I
So
love that. I think looking at that far ahead sometimes is hard, but it's important because we're laying those foundations for them to know, like you said, know what healthy relationships is, but have that resilience, have that self-esteem, have that self-worth, have that ability to really connect with others, right? Because you've done the work of really validating that their emotional experience is theirs and it's important. And again, like we have to separate it from action, right? It doesn't
yeah,
mean like our whatever the emotion is, that's a valid emotion, right? Because emotions are neither good or
yeah,
bad. They're neither positive or negative. They may be difficult or they may be hard to go through, but they're not good or bad. And the more we can do that, and the more we can help, we also help them raise their own emotional awareness and their own emotional intelligence when we're doing that as well, which sets them up.
yeah,
We could talk again, we could talk for hours
yeah.
about all the good things that the research says comes from those things. So just good, well-rounded adults. That's what we're growing. That's what we're incubating, right? And validation is a step toward that. Listen, we know parenting is hard, right? And I just want to say that to anybody that's listening. Parenting is challenging. It is difficult. We all are trying our best. And so in part, what we want to do is continue to get better and to continue to add to our tool belt because we care so much about our kids, and love them and want the best for them. Sometimes that means getting some help, with either your parenting or with whatever's going on with your kiddo. And we have amazing therapists like April, and others who work with kids and teens and parents, to really help them have the best relationship possible and to address any issues that potentially come up to set you up well for the future. So you can reach out and learn more about our therapist at matthewscounseling.net/therapist. April, as an intern, also offers affordable therapy for those that need it, that need assistance. And you can also learn more about that at matthewscounseling.net/affordable therapy. April, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure.
All right. We'll see you soon, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.